Welcome to The Legal View. I'm David Hogg and this is Aaron Gartlan. Tonight's special guest, Ricky Stokes.
And tonight on the Legal Brief, we're going to be discussing a recent mediation that we conducted in a motorcycle wreck case, and also what goes into a successful mediation.
American law is complex and not always easily understood, so a little help and advice can go a long way. The attorneys of Hogg and Gartlan Law Firm in Dothan present Legal View.
The Legal View with Hogg and Gartlan.
Ricky Stokes is best known for his website, rickystokesnews.com. There's some things that you might not know about Ricky. He is a bail bondsman, a private investigator, and has been Houston County's coroner. So tonight we're going to talk about Ricky Stokes and his experiences and get him to give us a few behind-the-scenes glimpses into some high-profile news events of recent date. Ricky, welcome to our show.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Folks say I chase criminals and politicians, bail bonding and news.
There you go. Well, sometimes you chase law enforcement officers too, don't you?
I did that this morning.
Interesting stories that we hear from you, Ricky.
Yes.
Well, we may talk about some of those things, but Aaron, we want to get some information, a little background from Ricky about Ricky Stokes. And of course, everybody knows Ricky Stokes News. You've probably got the most widely watched or viewed website in this area. People click in on Ricky Stokes News when they want to know what's going on. I would dare say that offices all over Dothan and Houston County have got your website bookmarked so that they can just see what's going on at any time.
We've been blessed with it. We get about 50,000 hits a day, and it's been interesting just to watch it grow.
Well, how did you get started with the concept of Ricky Stokes News? I know you used to be, and you may still be associated with the radio station.
Well, I actually got into the news media because the sheriff and I got into a political war. You know, it's hard to believe that I could get into a war with anybody as peaceful as I am. But the sheriff and I got into a political war, and I went to the talk radio station and said, "You need an investigative reporter, I need a position in the game." So I started doing his news for free. And from there, it kind of spun into the website and doing it on the web. I'm not on the radio anymore, just the website's all that I do.
Larry McKee, you and Larry
Yes.
were on the radio together for how many years?
We were on there about 4 or 5 years. It was a good experience, good training, and it was a lot of fun.
And then the website developed from that.
Yes.
And Ricky, you recently have been in Montgomery covering the, quote, bingo trial involving Senator Harry Ann Smith, Milton McGregor, Ronnie Gilley, and others. You were up there for, more than a week, weren't you?
I was up there off and on for the 2 months. My sister, Sandra Walden, covered the trial and transcripts of the trial. Sandra was up there for the entire trial. But first couple of weeks, I was up there the majority of the time, and then I went back and forth. I can drive to Montgomery from Dothan in my sleep.
I bet. Well, do you have a take from having been up there, maybe things that you observed or perceived that the general public didn't get a chance to see or get the flavor of?
Yeah, first off, your United States government knows how to waste a bunch of money. This case was about politicians. You know, if you don't support what I want or are on my side, then I'm not going to support you in a campaign. And that's really what this entire case was about, was the people supporting candidates that supported their view, their thinking. I mean, why do you give candidates money? You're not going to give a candidate money that doesn't support your line of thinking. And that's really what this whole trial was about. It was also about political heavyweights. It was about the Mike Hubbard. It was about Bob Riley. It was about Scott Beeson, Steve French, your political Republican heavyweights after the people that did not support their view or their thoughts. And, you know, Bob Riley ran to Alaska and had a wreck and then ran to Florida till the trial was over. Now it's going to be interesting what his new excuse is going to be when they start the trial again. But that's really what the trial was about. It wasn't about this big political corruption. It was about people supporting candidates that support them. You know, 12,000 phone calls and the government got a goose egg, couldn't get a conviction. It's not real good.
True. Well, we could talk all day and all night about that particular trial, but let's talk about some other aspects of Ricky Stokes and maybe some things that the general public doesn't know about Ricky. For example, I know you have worked with Aaron a good bit on criminal cases, bonding criminal clients, criminal defendants, right, Aaron?
That's right.
How did you get started in the bonding business?
I've been around it. I started with the sheriff's office when I was 15, so I've kind of been around it and got involved in doing some legal investigations with attorneys, and then it kind of sprung into the bail bonding business.
And the name of your business is?
A Advantage Bonding.
A Advantage Bonding.
Right. And you know, we do more than just get people out of jail. We help them, guide them through the system. A lot of people get messed up that they, you know, the number one problem on people missing court is that when they bond out of jail, this is their address, and a month later they're living somewhere else. They don't get their mail, so we kind of run interference with the court system, with the attorneys that cannot get up with their clients to solve some of the problems.
Background with other dangerous convictions, dangerous crimes in their history. You go looking for these guys, it can be hairy sometimes, can't it?
Yes.
Kind of like Dog the Bounty Hunter?
Yeah, dog adds a little more dramatic. I mean, we've been threatened and guns pulled on us, stuff like that, but that's just the nature of the business.
Well, it keeps it interesting anyway, right?
Yes.
Well, Ricky, also, you're a private investigator, and did you come into that kind of hand in hand with these other ventures that you're involved in?
Actually, you know, I was 21 years old when I was elected coroner, and I served coroner for 4 years, and I did not seek re-election. Coroner's a very demanding schedule. In 4 years, I worked like 1,000 death cases, sent dates home with sheriff deputies. You go out on a date, and all of a sudden you end up on a murder or something, and you know, have to get the sheriff's office to carry your date home. So after 4 years, I kind of had enough of being on call all the time. And then I started doing investigations for law firms after that period of time.
Well, that's a good point, and also I wanted to mention something about your tenure as coroner. When you ran for coroner in 1982, I believe,
Yes.
Wasn't it? You had an opponent.
Mr. Ken Hogg.
My dad.
That's right.
Yeah. And, well, as coroner, you have to go out and investigate deaths, correct?
Yes.
And help determine the cause of death, right?
Right.
And whether there were suspicious circumstances.
The cause and the manner of death. And
Right.
then notifying the family of the death and any evidence associated with the body or forensics. It's kind of changed from when I was coroner till now. Law enforcement takes a little more aggressive role in the death investigation. Back in the 80s, law enforcement did not take as an aggressive investigation. So oftentimes, the coroner went to the death and then said, well, wait a minute, I need to bring law enforcement in because there's something questionable.
Would you go to car wrecks?
Car wrecks. So any death that was a result of an act of another, or any death where they were not under the care of a doctor.
Well, Aaron and I have been talking about, in the context of personal injury and wrongful death attorneys, the importance of getting an investigation going for the plaintiff as soon as possible. And as an investigator, as a former coroner, can you bear that out?
Yes, it's very important that you get on the facts and the circumstances as soon as possible. That, you know, evidence starts disappearing from an accident scene. So you go out and photograph it. You photograph gouge marks. You know, when vehicles collide, they're going to dip down. So getting the points of impact there, looking for other things that may have contributed to the accident. So it's very important to document everything, take photographs, gather your witnesses, and it's best to do it immediately. You know, insurance companies are in the business of doing one thing, collecting your premiums. They're not in the business of paying you out money. They're in business of taking your money. So, and they today are very quick on top of claims. Used to, a claim may sit around for a week or so. Today, the wreck can happen today. This afternoon, they may have an insurance adjuster trying to figure out how to keep from paying you money.
Well, and Ricky, I'll take it a step further. The state of things now, especially in serious wrecks and accidents such as trucking accidents with 18-wheelers, you'll have an adjuster actually on the scene sometimes.
We have been, from the news standpoint, many a times on the scene that the adjuster was there before the scene was ever cleaned up.
So for the person who's been injured or whose family member has died, these people, these insurance companies are doing this. They're getting on top of it as soon as possible. You should too.
Absolutely.
Well, you've had the opportunity of working with a lot of fine attorneys, plaintiffs' attorneys in that regard. Sometimes you get subpoenaed to come to court to testify about what you've seen or pictures that you or your staff have taken, right?
Yes. One of the things I instruct my people, we use digital cameras, so you can take, cost as much for one picture or 500 pictures. Now we do this for both plaintiff, defense, everything, law enforcement, is we document when we go to a scene, we take pictures. I'll give you for instance a structure fire. If we go to a fire, we not only are taking pictures of the fire, but we'll turn around and take pictures of the people at the fire. Because if it turns out to be an arson case, a lot of times your arsonist shows back up on the scene. So fire departments, police department comes to get our evidence. So we document for law enforcement a lot of times, not just for news purposes. We'll turn around and take pictures of everything. And a lot of times plaintiff lawyers and all will contact us, victims that they need our pictures, they need our evidence or our information. There was a murder case where they charged a man in the death where 3 people were killed. We were the only ones with pictures of the guy that was convicted of murder behind the wheel while the medics were treating him. You know, we take pictures of injured patients and injured parties that you'll never see on Ricky Stokes News. But police, fire, sheriff's office later needs those pictures for some reason, or they need it for a training purpose later of trying to extricate somebody. So we do a lot of stuff like that you'll never see on Ricky Stokes News because we don't put bodies on, we don't put blood. Very rarely will you ever see that on Ricky Stokes News, but we document it for them.
Well, and you are consistently, I would say, first on the spot. In so many accidents, so many scenes. And is there a secret to that, or you want to share with the public how you're able to stay on top of this?
A lot of people say that I chase ambulances, and I tell them you're wrong. Usually the ambulance is behind us. You know, I've been in it since I was 15, and I'm 50 now. I stay totally connected all the time as far as knowing what's going on with 2 telephones. This isn't a Rodney Gilly drop phone. This is just another phone. And you know, with Southern Link in my vehicle, I've got, I think, 5 police radios in the vehicle, so we just stay connected. The news is one business you never get away from. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was out at midnight last night and was back out at 6:30 this morning, so it's just something you always get into.
And you probably get a lot of calls from people out there when they see news happening, they call you.
My cell phone number's on the website. You know, it's the cell phone number I carry with me. Now, I don't always answer it because, like, it's rang several times since I've been sitting here for the show. But you can get up with me, and people just have to keep calling me back if stuff happens. I have 106 unread emails right now.
Wow.
So it's something all the time. But you can contact me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If somebody has a question, you know, about something, I try to give them an answer. I'm not a lawyer. I don't give legal advice, but I've been in it to tell them what steps until they can get up with the attorney.
We've really enjoyed having you on the show tonight. You've really given us some great information, and I guess to wrap up or in closing, is there anything else you would like to add?
I thank y'all for having me on. The one thing that I want to tell your audience is to make sure that if something happens to you, contact your attorney. You need it documented immediately, and you don't need to wait. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nights and weekends. Contact the attorney so that your rights can be preserved. I've seen a lot of times where your rights are not preserved, and that's very important. But thank y'all for having me.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. Well, Aaron, in tonight's legal brief, we're going to talk about mediation, and a mediation that our firm recently conducted and conducted successfully. The terms are confidential, but I want you to tell us a little bit about it. Tell us a little bit about the keys to successful mediation, and also what you can tell us about this particular case.
Well, thank you, David. That's exactly right. We want to talk about mediation in general and what goes into that, and as much as we can relate it to the recent mediation we had in a serious motorcycle wreck case that was settled successfully at mediation.
Yeah, is mediation anything like a trial?
Well, basically, for those that aren't familiar with what mediation is, it's a process that I would describe where you have an attorney that, of course, is not part of the litigation on either side, that goes in and attempts to coach a settlement between both sides. And I just said an attorney that's not part of the litigation. It doesn't happen often, but a mediation can take place even before a lawsuit's filed. But typically, it's at the result of a lawsuit being filed.
Well, is it a good idea to just sit back and wait and hope that you can successfully mediate a case, and if that doesn't work, then file your lawsuit?
Absolutely not. Now, again, each case is different, and it has to stand on the facts and circumstances and the law that relates to that particular case. So again, what we're talking about is in general here. And so a decision has to be made about the filing of a lawsuit and the best approach to take in a case, again, based on the facts and circumstances and law that applies to that case. And that's I know I'm saying a lot just to answer that question, but the short answer to your question, if everybody can remember what the question was, is no, it's not the best approach to take to wait on mediation.
Well, yeah, what would be the benefits of going ahead and filing a lawsuit now and then mediating later instead of trying to settle it through mediation first?
Well, again, you have to make a decision in each particular case, but the key, I would say, to having a successful outcome at mediation is trial preparation. And the sooner you begin that process, the better your chances at having success are.
You're going to know more about the case if you've gone through trial preparation, discovery, gathered all the evidence, and then come to mediation, correct?
That's right. And in fact, David, I would take it a step further. The earlier, I would add early trial preparation. In other words, as soon as possible, that preparation needs to happen. And I can relate it back to the case that we just mediated a few weeks ago. And in that case, again, it's one of the things that comes up from time to time. I actually met with our client at the hospital. We were called to go out to the hospital to meet with him. So we actually started the groundwork and the preparation and the investigation, actually filed the lawsuit while he was in the hospital recovering and recuperating from surgeries, and got a investigator out to locate the witnesses, to identify and document evidence and documents, and hired an accident expert to go out and again, it was a motorcycle wreck case, to view the motorcycle, to look at the scene and assist us in our evaluation and preparation in the case. So again, the sooner the better.
Yeah, Ricky Stokes just talked about the importance of getting an immediate start on your investigation, and when you have filed a lawsuit, you can get the court's assistance in conducting your investigation. If the defense refuses to allow you to properly investigate your case and gather evidence, you always have the court to enforce the laws that permit you to gather that evidence. If you are simply communicating with the other side through correspondence and trying to get them to resolve the case, they may be holding important cards that you know nothing about, important facts and evidence that would prevent you from knowing the true value of the case.
David, that's right. And in this particular case, we made a calculated decision, again, right there while our client was still in the hospital, healing and recovering, to go ahead and file the lawsuit so we could exercise the subpoena power and the discovery rules of the circuit court. And then we actually, to kind of take the trial preparation a few steps further, we actually gathered all of the documents, the records, kind of marshaled everything together, all of the witnesses that were interviewed by the investigator. We took their depositions, of course, to preserve their testimony for future use if necessary, and also to identify any potential defenses that the defendant may have, and to identify how to address that. After that, again, we gathered all the medical records and documents and worked with a medical expert, basically a life care. We retained a life care planner to come in and review all the medical records, meet with our client, and give an evaluation and an opinion with regard to his current condition, as well as the impact that it would have on his future, any future medical needs and medical bills that would need to be addressed in the future. We brought in an economist to evaluate everything and give an opinion with regard to lost earnings and lost wages. So again, it's definitely not something that you want to sit back and wait on. An insurance company is just not going to go out and write a check out of the goodness of their heart. Again, especially in serious cases, you have to prove the liability. In other words, you have to prove who's at fault. Typically an insurance company is just not going to come right out of the gate and say, we're at fault, we're just here to, and show up at the hospital with their checkbook. And the damages have to be proven.
Well, and sometimes, oftentimes through the discovery process, the attorney for the defendant gets to hear how their client is going to testify. They're going to get to hear what the defendant has to say, and it may be the first real opportunity that the defense attorney has to evaluate the case from the standpoint of what if this case actually went to trial. And so there's an important psychological advantage to filing the lawsuit and doing the discovery and being ready to go to trial and then mediating the case. You walk into that mediation basically ready to try the case if the settlement talks fall through. And the defense knows that you're ready to try this case, you've done everything to prepare it for trial, and now this is their opportunity to settle, and it's their best opportunity to settle.
David, you bring up a great point, and just a couple things I would like to kind of dovetail onto that. Again, it just fits right in with this topic of trial preparation, and it's some other aspects that we can talk about with regard to this motorcycle wreck case. Again, his deposition was taken, and we spent a lot of time with our client preparing him for that deposition, so he knew what the important facts were that would be covered, so he knew what the important legal issues that he needed to know about, and he was thoroughly prepared, in our opinion, for that deposition. Well, we did the same thing at the mediation. I sat down with him and his family and let them know exactly how to conduct themselves, how the mediation is going to take place, so no one's caught off guard. Everyone knows how to react. They know what to expect. They know what everybody's role is, not to take anything personal, although certainly we do take it personal. The work that we do impacts the lives of our clients, but there's a time and place for everything, and the time to take something personal or get upset or emotional is not at the mediation table. But David, you're 100% right. You need to have that case prepared for trial.
Now, something else that's important is that mediation is a confidential process in terms of the jury will never know about the settlement negotiation. So the parties can feel free to go in and attempt to settle the case. The jury's not going to know that the defendant offered to pay a certain amount of money, and they're not going to know that the plaintiff was willing to accept a certain amount of money either, correct?
That's right. Now, one other thing that we did in this case, and it's something that goes into trial preparation and a successful mediation, is establishing and keeping an open line of communication with the medical providers. And this facilitates a couple things. One, it helps facilitate the client's treatment oftentimes. It also helps to facilitate the flow of information, medical records and medical bills. And then when you're at the mediation and the process of attempting to reach a settlement, if possible, you're able to have that open line of communication in an attempt, in cases where it's necessary, to get those medical bills reduced to ultimately maximize the recovery for your client. And David, in closing, and to wrap up regarding mediation, it's a step in the process, and that's how we view it. It's not viewed as the destination. It's a step in the process, and the way to a successful mediation is to go in with the attitude, and like you said, to be prepared for trial. And we did that in this particular case. In other words, we sent a message early on and stuck to that message that we're not here to necessarily settle this case. We're here to, in an effort to maximize the recovery for our client. And if that doesn't work, then we're prepared to go to trial.
Good information.
And David, I've noticed, what's the deal with the tie you have on tonight?
Oh, well, thanks. This is a tie that the Downtown Group has created, and they're selling them to raise money for Downtown Group and raise awareness of downtown Dothan. Kathy Cole, I got this tie from her, and Kathy's going to be a guest on a future show, so we're looking forward to that.
Well, David, I'll have to get one of those ties.
Will do. And thanks for watching The Legal View. Watch Sunday nights at 10:30. See you next week.
Good night.
Good night.
To submit legal questions you may have, email to aaron@hoggartlanlawfirm.com. Thanks for watching. This has been a production of the Hogg and Gartlan Law Firm and WDFX TV, Fox 34.
The Legal View with Hogg and Gartlan.